Welcome, Pisces, to your Jupiter in Cancer. No more blocks. Deep dive video for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. If we go back to June the 9th, 2025, Jupiter, the planet of growth and hope, moved into the water sign of Cancer. Many people trumpeted at the time that the most amazing year ahead was in store because of Jupiter being in its exaltation in Cancer. I cautioned at the time that things might not work out quite as people expected. Fast forwards over that year, a lot of people have shared comments on my YouTube about the frustration they've had with Jupiter in Cancer not coming up to its expectations. I'm going to take you back to that event chart and explain why it wasn't quite as good as promoted, but also bring you forwards to now and show why the rest of June really can be so absolutely fabulous. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. By the end of this forecast, you'll have a clear picture of what's upcoming in terms of your energy, work, relationships, or finances. So on the screen, Pisces, is your event chart of when Jupiter moved into Cancer. And for sure, Jupiter met by Mercury. So these are the two planets of trade and marketing. Very, very positive, and especially in the fifth house. The fifth house can be about joy. It can be about romance. It can be about being more playful. But the sign of Cancer is very much about nurture. It's about protectiveness. It can be about starting a home-based business or working on our hobbies in a more productive way. But just at the moment that Jupiter arrived, it was challenged by the strict, restrictive vibe of Saturn. Saturn in the second house of your situation, where it remains still, did of course go back into your sign before returning to Aries on the 14th of February. But that was in a conjunction with Neptune as Jupiter arrived. And this combination, Saturn's in its full in Aries, not its greatest location by any means. Aries can be about vitality, the body. Neptune can be draining. The second house can be about money, self-worth, our values. The fifth house, where Jupiter and Mercury are, can be very much about speculation and risk taking. Of course, the sign of Cancer would want to make sure it felt right. And Jupiter, it's worth noting, the archetype for Jupiter that's out there generally is very much to do with its Sagittarius rulership, about being very bold, very optimistic, very expansive, and of course, very lucky. And if we do think in a positive way, often that will bring a much better outcome. But actually, Jupiter is also the traditional ruler of your sign, where it's very much more to do with faith. And because Cancer is a water sign like you have a mutual receptiveness. So this is a great time to have faith, but work on the inner part of our situation. So, for example, if you wanted to have children or you have children, the fifth house is very reflective. So that may have brought some joy into your world over the last year. But what I think would have been much more challenging is just the neat thought that romance had to come into your life in the most spectacular ways just when Saturn was forging the most punishing link possible, because they have very different energies. Jupiter about growth, Saturn can be about restriction, at the very least restraint. So for us all over the last year, we've been collectively driving with our celestial handbrakes on, slowing things down, creating resistance. Not easy. And then your modern aquatic ruler was clashing with your traditional ruler, and that could create a sense of unreality or having far too higher expectations. And then Saturn in the square with Mercury, well, that really can be a cold and at times depleting energy. Our thinking may not be sharp. Mercury's not brilliant in the sign of Cancer. Mercury is much better uh, in a sign where it can be more logical or more passionate, So in the water sign of Cancer, the more subjective energies of the moon can affect the logic of Mercury. But it doesn't mean to say that you won't have had a really lovely date over the last year, or you didn't meet someone who really made your pulse race, or that an existing relationship didn't get better, but it all would have taken a lot of determination. And I think particularly when it comes to how you value yourself, because Saturn in Aries is very much about our identity. Neptune can diminiate that, confuse. So if we're wanting to be bolder, more jovial, very Jupiterian energies, and be very trying to get to know someone in a very sort of upbeat way, not quite so easy. Mars, also the planet of desire, was in a clash with Uranus, the planet of change, and that's created a lot of nervous energy, which wouldn't have been helpful. Venus, the relator, at home, domiciled in Taurus, brilliant place for it to be, in a very strong link with Jupiter and Mercury. Absolutely. So that's why it wouldn't have been all doom and gloom, but actually in a very complex link with Pluto in your 12th house. So there may have been a lot of deep thought stirring about your personal value, Venus. Your conversations you've had haven't at times been easy. There may have been some very leveraged ones. There may have been some deep issues that have come up to do with jealousy, possessiveness, control, and that may have inhibited the potential to have more joyous connections. So you can see, and I should just say, sorry, finally, the most northerly planet is the moon in an opposition with Uranus. So your feelings may have been much closer to the surface for good or bad over that year. If you have had an idea or a passion brilliant for the fifth house that you've wanted to share, that you've been in touch with your emotions around, your soul purpose, I think you will have made progress. But I think you would have had to dig deep. If you've needed to fund something, that may have been an issue. So let's go forwards to the 9th of June 2026. Yes, exactly a year to the day after Jupiter entered Cancer, Jupiter and Venus come together in the most beautiful conjunction. And for you, that can bring some really lovely news, a social invite. It may be there is someone who showed up that you're really enamored with. This can be lovely, lovely, lovely in the fifth house. But ironically, Saturn in that second house, which is asking you to scrutinize the cost and the value, is in a square with Mercury still in that fifth house. So we still got some repetition from the first event. It is true, however, that Pluto in that 12th house is in a fabulous link to Uranus now. And if you're digging deep into that old vault of past experience, knowledge, and wisdom, you can feed that into your life. And maybe there's some changes going on around where you live, decluttering, moving the furniture around, repainting, getting more invested in where you're living, but showing some innovative approaches. Also, what we do have is that Mars in the sign of Taurus is in a very energized link with Mercury. So if you are clear about what you want to say, I think you can say it with a lot of passion. We do have the North Node, however, in your zodiac sign in a T square and the South in a T square with Uranus. So something about that shift in your emotions is impacting on your identity, but also perhaps on how it has been around certain relationships. But if you're wanting to be more sociable as you come into this latter part of June, this really gives you a lot of permission to do so. It is true that the moon's in a conjunction with your modern ruler in the second house. You may find if you have been trying to adhere to a diet, that could be a little harder to keep to. But that brings us through to the 28th of June. And it really is incredible the amount of synchronicities because if you recall when we started the journey, Mercury was in a conjunction with Jupiter. And it's in a conjunction with Jupiter as it ends the journey. The difference is where Saturn and Neptune were in difficult squares to these two. Look at Mars in a wonderful sextile. So Mars and Jupiter both on the anaretic degree. Mars in your third house, of passion for your idea and valuing your idea in a brilliant link to Jupiter. Mars, of course, can be about desire. If there's something you really fancy, this is giving you a lot of get-go to have the confidence to reach out to them, to socialize. We also have Saturn in a very constructive link to Venus, the relator, and the planet of money, and also to the moon. All three charts, the moon in Sagittarius. It's just really, it is endlessly brilliant astrology. It really, really is. So the implication here is that I think if finances have been a bit challenged over the last year with Saturn in the second house, you can get a reward if you've really patiently and persistently kept at it. And I feel if you've done that, you absolutely deserve it. So just to finally say, as Mars completes that brilliant link to Jupiter later on the 28th, it does move into the sign of Gemini. And it's then going to be linking with Uranus over the last few days of the month. So if you haven't thought about moving or moving the furniture around or doing something dramatic, just much more spontaneously, inviting loads of people around your home, or if you've got people there with you, finding some personal space away from them, something quite exciting can happen around your emotional life as June comes to a close. I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next, Pisces. But just to say, I've reduced the price of my personal horoscope reports. The reason I've slashed them is because of the cost of living increases. For many years, they've been buy two for 30% off. Now it's buy one and get three. So three for the price of one. The one you pay for is your life roadmap report, which helps us to understand the patterns that play out in our lives and get a more intimate understanding of that energy and how to work with it better future forwards. Free, your 12 months transit, but also your draconic soul karmic analysis. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your June monthly forecast, that's on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Chiron 50-year return forecast, on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, absolute pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. If you've yet to sign up for your free daily written horoscope, fire to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, do so below too as well. Third cough. I am so sorry. So as far as energy is concerned, I think if you have had some worry over money, that would have affected your vitality more than anything. And also because of Jupiter and Mercury starting the journey in a very friendly and easygoing part of your chart, because they were conflicted by Saturn and Neptune in a draining and perhaps a bit of a grim way. If you haven't had quite as much joy as you would have liked, just know that from now until the end of the month, your energy can really come up in a lovely way. Now, professionally, I feel the fifth house, if you work in an environment which enables you to express your brilliance in all its different formats, and you can be so creative, I do feel that you could have still made progress. It may be that you haven't been paid or appreciated or acknowledged anywhere near as much as you would like. If you're not enjoying it still, have the confidence to change that as this month draws to a close. I think one of the things with Pisces people, and I do have some very close friends who are Pisces people, will stick and sacrifice really way beyond a lot of other zodiac signs. Of course, when it gets to that point that you've had enough, you can really detach in a spectacular way and really cool out in a way which really surprises people. But if there is something that you've really given faithfully everything to and you're not being appreciated, have the confidence with Mars is help to push out and reach out for potential opportunities. When it comes to your romantic situation, the fifth house may not have seen you meet the love of your life, but it may have done. I truly hope it has. If it has been that you've met someone, it might not be absolutely perfect, but as long as your values align, I think it's an old-fashioned concept, but I think it's one that stands the test of time. But if you have in an existing relationship been able to be playful with a partner, keep that going. But if you are single, again with Mars forging that link to Venus and Jupiter, what a very exciting and potentially hot influence. Push yourself out of your comfort zone towards the end of this month. And thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Pisces, as always. All the best and look forward to seeing you again soon.